If your money disappears every month and you don't know why, if you check your bank account on the 15th and wonder where your entire paycheck went, if you feel like you're making decent money but have nothing to show for it at the end of the year, then this video might change everything. I'm not going to sell you some complicated investment strategy or tell you to become a millionaire by cutting out coffee. What I am going to show you is a simple rule, so simple that you can implement it today, that has helped millions of people take control of their finances. It's called the 50-30-20 rule, and in the next 10 minutes, you're going to understand exactly how it works and why it might be the only financial framework you'll ever need. Let me start with a question. Do you know where your money goes? Not roughly, not kinda. Do you actually know? Most people don't. They get paid, they spend, and then they're surprised when there's nothing left. The 50-30-20 rule solves this by giving you 3 simple buckets for your money. 50% for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for savings and investments. That's it. 3 numbers, 3 categories. But before you think this sounds too simple to work, let me break down exactly what each category means and why these specific percentages matter. Let's start with the 50% that goes to needs. Your needs are the things you absolutely cannot live without. These are the expenses that keep a roof over your head, food in your stomach, and the lights on. We're talking about rent or your mortgage payment, utilities like electricity, water, gas, and internet, because yes, in today's world, internet is a need, not a want. Groceries, not restaurants, but the actual food you buy to cook at home. Transportation costs to get to work, whether that's your car payment, insurance, gas, or public transportation, health insurance and essential medications, minimum debt payments, because if you don't pay them, there are serious consequences. These are your non-negotiables, the things that if you don't pay them, your life falls apart. Here's what most people get wrong about needs. They inflate them. They convince themselves that things are needs when they're actually wants. That premium gym membership? Probably a want. You can work out at home or find a cheaper gym. That expensive car payment? Definitely a want. You need transportation, but you don't need a luxury vehicle. The fancy apartment in the best part of town? Want, not need. You need housing, but housing comes in many price ranges. This is where people sabotage themselves. They call wants needs, and then they wonder why 50% isn't enough. Let me give you a real example. Say you make $4,000 a month after taxes. 50% of that is $2,000 for needs. Let's break it down. Rent or mortgage, $1,200. That's a decent one-bedroom apartment in many mid-sized cities or a mortgage payment on a modest home. Groceries, $300. That's about $75 a week, which is completely reasonable if you're cooking at home. Utilities, including internet, $150. Car payment and insurance, $250 for a reliable used car. Gas, $80. Phone bill, $50 for a basic plan. That's $2,030. You're right at the limit. Notice what's not in there. No streaming services, no eating out, no premium anything. Just the basics. And that's the point. Needs should be boring. Needs should be the things you don't even think about because they're just part of staying alive and functional. Now here's where it gets interesting. What if your needs are more than 50% of your income? What if you live in an expensive city where rent alone takes 60% of your paycheck? This is the reality for millions of people, and the 50-30-20 rule doesn't ignore it. It acknowledges it. When your needs exceed 50%, you have 3 options. 1. Increase your income. 2. Decrease your needs. 3. Temporarily adjust the ratios. Let's talk about each of these because they're all valid strategies depending on your situation. Increasing your income is the most obvious solution, but not always the easiest. This could mean asking for a raise, switching to a higher-paying job, starting a side hustle, or developing skills that make you more valuable in the marketplace. It takes time, but it's often the most effective long-term solution because it doesn't require you to sacrifice your quality of life. You're not cutting things out, you're adding more money to work with. Decreasing your needs is harder emotionally but faster to implement. This might mean moving to a cheaper apartment or getting a roommate to split costs. It might mean selling that car with a big payment and buying a cheaper, reliable vehicle with cash. It could mean cutting your housing costs by moving to a less expensive neighborhood or even a different city. These are tough decisions, but they're sometimes necessary. The key is to be honest with yourself about what's actually a need versus what's a want that you've convinced yourself is essential. Temporarily adjusting the ratios is the compromise position. Maybe your needs are 60% right now. That's okay. You adjust the other categories. Wants become 20% instead of 30, savings become 20% instead of 20. Wait, that doesn't work mathematically. Let me recalculate. If needs are 60%, you might do 20% wants and 20% savings, or you might do 25% wants and 15% savings. The point is, you acknowledge that you're not at the ideal ratio yet, but you're working toward it. You have a plan to eventually get your needs down to 50%, whether that's by increasing income or finding ways to reduce those fixed costs over time. The biggest mistake people make with needs is thinking they're set in stone. They're not. Yes, you have a lease or a mortgage, but leases end and mortgages can be refinanced or you can sell and move. Yes, you have a car payment, but cars can be sold and replaced with cheaper options. Needs feel permanent, but they're only permanent until you make a different choice. And sometimes making that different choice is the difference between financial stress and financial peace. Let's move on to the 30% for wants. This is where life happens. This is the fun money, the spending that makes life worth living. Your wants include eating at restaurants, going to bars, entertainment like movies or concerts, streaming services like Netflix, Spotify, and Disney+, hobbies, whether that's gaming, sports equipment, or craft supplies, vacations and travel, nice clothes beyond basic necessities, that daily coffee shop visit, upgraded versions of things you already have, gifts for other people, and basically anything that you could survive without but that makes your life better. Here's the beautiful thing about the wants category. It's guilt-free. You've already covered your needs with the 50%. You're already saving and investing 20%. This 30% is yours to enjoy however you want. No judgment, no shame. Want to spend $200 on a nice dinner? Go for it. It's in your wants budget. Want to buy that new video game? Do it. Want to take a weekend trip? Book it. The key is that you're spending consciously. You know exactly how much you have to spend on wants, and you stay within that limit. Let me give you another real example with our $4,000 monthly income. 30% is $1,200 for wants. That's $300 a week, or about $43 a day. Suddenly, wants don't seem unlimited anymore, do they? You have to choose. Maybe you spend $150 on streaming services, gym membership, and subscriptions throughout the month. That leaves you with $1,050, or about $262 a week for everything else. Eating out, entertainment, shopping, whatever. Some weeks you might spend more, some weeks less, but on average, you stay within that 30%. The magic of having a defined wants category is that it removes the guilt from spending while also preventing overspending. You're not depriving yourself, you're not living like a monk, but you're also not spending recklessly. You have boundaries, and boundaries are what create freedom. Without boundaries, every spending decision is a source of stress. Should I buy this? Can I afford it? Will I regret this later? With the 30% wants category, the answer is simple. If it fits in your wants budget for the month, yes. If it doesn't, no. The decision is made for you by the system. Now, some people will say 30% for wants is too much. Others will say it's not enough. And they're both right, depending on their goals and values. If you're in a financial emergency, if you have high-interest debt, if you're way behind on retirement savings, then maybe you need to temporarily reduce wants to 20% or even 15% and put that extra money toward your financial priorities. On the flip side, if you have no debt, you're already financially secure and on track with your savings goals, maybe wants can be 35 or 40%. The 50-30-20 rule is a framework, not a prison. You adjust it based on your reality. But here's what you cannot do. You cannot let wants creep into the needs category, and you cannot sacrifice savings to fund wants. That's where people get into trouble. They start thinking that eating out 5 times a week is a need because they're too tired to cook. They start thinking that the expensive car is a need because they deserve it after working hard. They start thinking that the vacation is a need because they're stressed. No, wants are wants. Call them what they are, enjoy them guilt-free within your 30%, but don't lie to yourself about what category they belong in. Finally, let's talk about the 20% for savings and investments. This is the category that builds your future. This is the money that works for you instead of you working for money. 20% goes towards building your emergency fund, contributing to retirement accounts like a 401k or IRA, investing in stocks, bonds, index funds, or real estate, paying off high-interest debt beyond the minimums, saving for major purchases like a house down payment or a car you'll buy with cash, and building wealth that will eventually give you options and freedom.
With our $4,000 example, 20% is $800 a month. That's $9,600 a year going toward your future. In 10 years, that's $96,000, and that's not even counting investment returns. If you invest that money in a simple index fund, averaging 7% annual returns, in 10 years, you'd have over $130,000. In 20 years, you'd have over $400,000. In 30 years, over $900,000. That's the power of consistently saving and investing 20% of your income. But here's where most people fail. They save whatever's left at the end of the month. Surprise, there's nothing left. The 50-30-20 rule flips this script. You save first. You pay yourself first. When that paycheck hits your account, the first thing you do is move 20% into savings and investments. Automate it if possible. Set up automatic transfers so you never even see that money in your checking account. It goes straight to your savings account, your investment account, your retirement account, wherever it needs to go. What's left after you've saved 20% is what you have to work with for needs and wants. This psychological shift is crucial. When you save what's left, savings are the last priority. They get whatever scraps remain after you've funded everything else. But when you save first, savings become the first priority. Needs and wants have to fit within what remains. It forces you to be more intentional with your spending because you can't just dip into savings every time you overspend. The money's already gone. It's already working for your future. Let me address the obvious objection. What if 20% feels impossible right now? What if you're living paycheck to paycheck and the idea of saving 20% seems like a fantasy? Start smaller. Start with 5%. Start with 1%. Start with something. The specific percentage matters less than the habit of paying yourself first. If you can only save $50 a month right now, save $50. Next month, try to save $55. The month after, try $60. Build the habit. Prove to yourself that you can do it. As your income grows or your expenses decrease, increase the percentage. But start now, even if it's small. The other piece of the 20% that people often miss is the priority order. Not all savings goals are equal. Here's the recommended sequence. First, build a starter emergency fund of $1,000. This is your buffer against life's minor emergencies, a car repair, a medical bill, an unexpected expense. $1,000 prevents you from going into debt when something goes wrong. Second, pay off high-interest debt, anything above 7 or 8%. Credit cards, payday loans, high-interest personal loans. These are bleeding you dry with interest. They need to go. Third, build a full emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. This is your safety net if you lose your job or face a major life disruption. Fourth, contribute enough to your retirement account to get any employer match. This is free money. Don't leave it on the table. Fifth, max out your tax-advantaged retirement accounts like a Roth IRA. Sixth, invest in taxable brokerage accounts or save for other goals like a house down payment. This sequence ensures you're building a foundation before you're building wealth. You're protecting yourself from disaster before you're optimizing for maximum returns. Too many people skip straight to investing while they have no emergency fund and tons of high-interest debt. That's building a house on sand. You need the foundation first. Now, let's talk about what happens when the 50-30-20 rule doesn't work perfectly, because it won't. Life is messy. Your income might fluctuate if you're self-employed or work on commission. Your expenses might spike in certain months. You might have unexpected costs. The rule isn't meant to be perfect every month. It's a target, an average you're aiming for over time. Maybe one month your needs are 60% because you had to replace your water heater. That's fine. The next month your needs might be 45% and it balances out. Maybe one month you spend 40% on wants because you took a vacation. Okay, the next month you spend 20% on wants and it averages out to 30%. The key is to track your spending. You need to know what you're actually spending in each category. You can use a budgeting app, a spreadsheet, or even just a notebook. At the end of each month, add up your expenses and categorize them: needs, wants, savings. Calculate what percentage of your income went to each category. Are you close to 50-30-20? Great. Are you way off? That's okay. Now you have data. Now you know where to adjust. Maybe you realize your needs are actually 55%. Now you know you need to either increase income or find a way to reduce those fixed costs. Maybe you realize your wants are 40% and your savings are only 10%. Now you know you need to cut back on discretionary spending and increase your savings rate. The 50-30-20 rule works because it's simple enough to remember and flexible enough to adapt to your life. It's not about perfection, it's about awareness and intention. It's about having a framework that guides your decisions without making you feel restricted or deprived. You know that half your money goes to keeping your life running, a third goes to enjoying your life, and a fifth goes to building your future. Simple, clear, actionable. Let me give you one more example to really drive this home. Let's say you make $6,000 a month after taxes. 50% for needs is $3,000. 30% for wants is $1,800. 20% for savings is $1,200. Your rent is $1,500. Groceries are $400. Utilities are $200. Car costs are $400. Insurance and minimum debt payments are $300. You're at $2,800 in needs, which is $200 under your budget. Perfect. You have breathing room. Your wants include $200 in subscriptions, $300 eating out, $200 on entertainment, $500 on hobbies and shopping, and $600 on whatever else comes up. You're right at $1,800. And your savings of $1,200 goes $400 to your emergency fund until it's fully funded, $300 to your 401k to get the employer match, $300 to your Roth IRA, and $200 to a taxable brokerage account. You're hitting all your targets. You're living well, you're saving aggressively, you're building wealth. This is what financial balance looks like. But what if your numbers don't work out that cleanly? What if your needs are $3,500 with this same $6,000 income? You're $500 over your 50% target. This is where you have to make hard choices. Can you reduce your rent by $500? That might mean moving or getting a roommate. Can you reduce your car costs? Maybe you sell the car and buy something cheaper, eliminating or reducing a car payment. Can you cut your grocery bill? Maybe you're buying expensive brands or prepared foods when cheaper options would work just as well. Can you increase your income by $500 a month? That's a side hustle, a raise, or a job switch. These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary questions if you want to get your needs down to 50%. The alternative is to accept that your needs are 58% and adjust the rest. Wants become 27%, savings become 15%. You're still saving, which is good, but you're saving less than ideal. You make a plan. In 6 months, your lease is up and you're going to move somewhere cheaper. Or in a year, you're going to sell your car and buy something more affordable. Or you're going to focus on increasing your income so that even with your current needs, they become less than 50% of a higher income. The rule gives you a target. How you hit that target is up to you. One of the most powerful aspects of the 50-30-20 rule is that it scales with your income. If you make $3,000 a month, you apply it. If you make $30,000 a month, you apply it. The percentages stay the same. The only thing that changes is the absolute dollar amounts. This is important because as your income grows, lifestyle inflation is real. You make more money, so you upgrade your apartment, your car, your everything. Before you know it, you're making twice as much, but saving the same amount or even less because your spending grew with your income. The 50-30-20 rule prevents this. As your income doubles, your needs might grow slightly, your wants might grow more, but your savings also grow proportionally. You're always saving 20%. If you're making $3,000 a month, you're saving $600. If you're making $6,000 a month, you're saving $1,200. If you're making $10,000 a month, you're saving $2,000. Your wealth grows with your income, instead of just your lifestyle growing. This is how people making average incomes become millionaires, not by making more money than everyone else, but by consistently saving a significant portion of what they make and investing it wisely over decades. The 50-30-20 rule is the framework that makes this possible without requiring extreme frugality or depravity. You get to live a good life now while also building a great life for the future.
Now, let's talk about the mistakes people make when trying to implement the 50-30-20 rule, because knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. The first and biggest mistake is thinking savings come last. People approach their budget by first covering all their needs, then spending on all their wants, and then, if there's anything left, they save it. This is backwards. This is why most people never build wealth. There's never anything left. Wants are infinite. You can always find something else to buy, somewhere else to go, something else to upgrade. If savings are last, they never happen. The 50-30-20 rule says savings come first. Not first in the sense of being more important than needs. Obviously, you have to eat and have shelter, but first in the sense of when you get paid, you immediately allocate 20% to savings before you do anything else. You pay yourself first. The rest of your spending has to fit within the 80% that remains. This mental shift is everything. When you save first, you're living on 80% of your income. When you save last, you're trying to live on 100% and hoping there's something left over. One of these strategies works, one doesn't. Make savings automatic. Set up automatic transfers on payday. Your paycheck hits, and before you can spend it, 20% is already gone into your savings and investment accounts. What you see in your checking account is what you have to spend. This removes willpower from the equation. You're not deciding each month whether to save. It just happens. The second major mistake is ignoring small expenses. People focus on the big stuff, their rent, their car payment, their insurance, but they ignore the $5 here, the $10 there, the $20 subscription they forgot about. These small expenses add up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars a month. They're death by 1,000 cuts. You think you're spending 30% on wants, but when you actually track every coffee, every impulse purchase, every forgotten subscription, you realize you're spending 45% on wants and you don't even know where it went. This is why tracking matters. You need to know where your money is going, every dollar. Not forever, but at least for a few months until you understand your spending patterns. Use an app like Mint or YNAB, or just save every receipt and review them at the end of the week. You'll be shocked at what you find. You'll discover you're spending $60 a month on subscriptions you don't use, $100 a month on takeout you didn't realize was that much, $50 a month on random Amazon purchases that seemed small individually but add up. Once you see these patterns, you can make conscious choices about what to keep and what to cut. The small expenses are especially insidious because they don't feel significant in the moment. $5 for coffee doesn't seem like a big deal, but $5 a day is $150 a month. That's $1,800 a year. That's $18,000 over 10 years. And if you invested it at 7% returns, it would be over $25,000. I'm not saying don't buy coffee. I'm saying know that you're buying coffee and count it in your wants category. Make it a conscious choice, not an unconscious habit that drains your finances without you noticing. The third mistake is trying to do everything at once. People learn about the 50-30-20 rule and they want to immediately slash their expenses, max out their savings, and perfectly hit those percentages. They cut out everything they enjoy, they try to save 40% of their income, they make massive changes overnight, and then they burn out in 3 weeks and go back to their old habits. This is the financial equivalent of crash dieting. It doesn't work. Sustainable change is gradual change. If your savings rate is currently 0, don't jump to 20% overnight. Start with 5%. Get comfortable with that. After a month or two, increase it to 7%, then 10%, then 15%. Eventually, you'll get to 20%, but you'll get there in a way that's sustainable because you've gradually adjusted your lifestyle and your spending habits. Same with your needs. If your needs are currently 70% of your income, you're not going to get that down to 50% immediately unless you make some drastic life changes. And maybe you need to make drastic life changes, but more likely, you need to chip away at it. Find one expense to reduce this month, find another next month. Over time, you get your needs down to 60%, then 55%, then 50%. Progress, not perfection. The all-or-nothing mentality kills more financial plans than anything else. People think if they can't do it perfectly, there's no point in doing it.
That's not true. Doing it imperfectly is infinitely better than not doing it at all. Saving 10% is better than saving 0%. Getting your needs down to 60% is better than having them at 70%. Every step in the right direction counts. Every improvement matters. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being better than you were yesterday, last month, last year. Another mistake people make is being too rigid with the categories. They stress about whether something is a need or a want. They agonize over whether a particular expense fits in this bucket or that bucket. Here's the truth. The exact categorization doesn't matter that much, as long as you're consistent. If you always count your gym membership as a need, fine. If you always count it as a want, also fine. Just be consistent month to month so you're comparing apples to apples. The goal isn't perfect categorization. The goal is awareness of where your money is going and intentionality about how you're allocating it. Some people also make the mistake of not adjusting the rule for their life stage and circumstances. If you're 22, single, and just starting your career, the 50-30-20 rule might work great. But if you're 45 with 3 kids, a mortgage, and aging parents you're helping to support, your needs might naturally be higher. That's okay. The rule is a guideline, not a law. Adjust it for your reality. Maybe your needs are 60% because you're supporting a family. Maybe your savings are only 15% right now because you're aggressively paying off debt. That's fine. The principle still applies. You're being intentional about how you allocate your income across needs, wants, and future you.
The last common mistake is giving up after a bad month. You blow your budget, you overspend on wants, you have an unexpected expense that throws everything off, you feel like you failed, so you give up on the whole system. Don't do this. One bad month doesn't erase progress. One overspending episode doesn't mean the system doesn't work. It means you're human. Acknowledge what happened, figure out why it happened, make a plan to prevent it next time, and move on. The 50-30-20 rule isn't about never making mistakes, it's about having a framework that helps you make better decisions more often than not. Let me share a real story that illustrates how powerful this rule can be when you stick with it. Sarah was 28 years old, making $50,000 a year, which comes out to about $3,000 a month after taxes. She felt like she was making decent money, but she had nothing to show for it. No savings, no investments, just a constant cycle of getting paid and watching the money disappear. She didn't know where it went, she just knew it was gone. She tried budgeting apps, but they were too complicated. She tried cutting out everything fun, but she couldn't sustain it. She felt hopeless about her finances. Then she learned about the 50-30-20 rule. She started by just tracking her spending for 1 month without trying to change anything, just awareness. What she found shocked her. Her rent was $1,200, which was 40% of her income right there. Her car payment and insurance were another $450, 15%. Groceries were $300, utilities were $150, her phone bill was $80, student loan minimum payments were $200. That's $2,380 in needs, which was 79% of her $3,000 income. No wonder she had no money left. Her needs alone were taking up almost 80%. She had only $620 left for wants and savings combined, and she was spending all of it on wants, going out with friends, online shopping, subscriptions, random stuff. Her savings rate was 0. She knew something had to change. Her needs were way too high. She couldn't keep living like this. So she made a plan. She couldn't do anything about her lease for 6 months, so she decided that when it was up, she was going to move somewhere cheaper or get a roommate. That would save her at least $300 to $400 a month. She also looked at her car. She owed $15,000 on a car that was worth $18,000. Her payment was $350 a month. She sold it, paid off the loan, and bought a $7,000 reliable used Honda Civic with the leftover money. No more car payment. Her car insurance also went down because she wasn't financing anymore. She was now saving $400 a month just from the car decision. 6 months later, her lease was up. She found a 2-bedroom apartment with a friend from work and split the rent. Her portion was now $750 instead of $1,200, another $450 saved per month.
Suddenly, her needs went from $2,380 down to $1,530. That's 51% of her income. She was basically at the target. She now had $1,470 for wants and savings. She allocated $900 for wants, which was plenty for her to still enjoy life, and $570 for savings. That's 19%, close enough to 20%. Within a year of implementing the 50-30-20 rule, Sarah had built a $3,000 emergency fund. She was contributing to her 401k to get her employer match. She paid off her credit card debt, and she felt in control of her money for the first time in her adult life. The rule didn't require her to make more money. She was making the same $50,000. It required her to be intentional about where that money went, to make hard decisions about her needs, to automate her savings, to live within a framework. That's the power of a system. Let's talk about another scenario. Mark was 35, married with 2 kids. Their household income was $90,000 a year, about $6,000 a month after taxes. Sounds like a lot, right? But they felt broke all the time. Their mortgage was $2,000, daycare for 2 kids was $1,800, car payments on 2 vehicles were $700, insurance, groceries, minimum debt payments brought their total needs to $5,300. That's 88% of their income. They had $700 left for wants and savings combined, and they were spending all of it on wants because they felt like they deserved it after working hard and dealing with the stress of young kids. Their savings rate was 0. They were living paycheck to paycheck on $90,000 a year. The 50-30-20 rule showed them why. Their needs were crushing them. 88% is not sustainable. They needed to make changes. The mortgage was fixed for now, and they couldn't really do anything about daycare costs without one of them quitting their job, which would cost more than the daycare. But they could do something about the cars. They had 2 vehicles with payments totaling $700 a month. That's $8,400 a year going to car payments. They sold both cars, paid off the loans, and bought 2 reliable used vehicles with cash from savings they had been neglecting. No more car payment. $700 freed up. 6 months later, they also looked at their needs. They were spending $400 a month on groceries, but when they tracked it, they realized they were also spending $300 a month on takeout, which they had been counting as a need because they were too busy to cook. They reclassified that as a want and committed to meal prepping on Sundays to reduce the takeout spending. They looked at their insurance and realized they were overinsured on some things and underinsured on others. They adjusted their policies and saved another $100 a month. They called their internet and phone providers and negotiated better rates, saving $60 a month. With these changes, their needs went from $5,380 down to $4,140. That's 69%. Still not ideal, but way better than 88%. They now had $1,860 for wants and savings. They allocated $800 to wants and $1,060 to savings. That's about 18% savings rate. Not perfect, but they were saving over $12,000 a year, which was infinitely better than 0. Within 2 years, they had a fully funded emergency fund. They were on track with their retirement savings. They felt like they could breathe financially. The 50-30-20 rule gave them a roadmap out of paycheck-to-paycheck living. These stories illustrate something important. The 50-30-20 rule isn't magic. It doesn't solve problems by itself, but it reveals problems. It shows you exactly where your money is going and whether that allocation is serving you. Most people have no idea they're spending 70 or 80% on needs until they actually calculate it. They just feel broke and don't know why. The rule gives you data, and data gives you power. Power to make informed decisions, power to prioritize what matters, power to build the life you want instead of just reacting to whatever happens. Let me address some specific scenarios and how the 50-30-20 rule applies. What if you're in debt? Should you still save 20%, or should all that money go to debt payments? It depends on the type of debt. If it's high-interest debt, anything above 7 or 8%, you should aggressively pay it off. That might mean temporarily reducing your savings rate to 10 or 15% and putting the extra 10 or 5% toward debt payoff. Why not reduce it more? Because you still need an emergency fund. If you have zero savings and an emergency happens, you'll just go back into debt. Build at least a small emergency fund of $1,000, then attack the debt, then build your full emergency fund, then go back to normal savings rates. If it's low-interest debt, like a mortgage or a car loan at 3%, treat it like a normal need. Pay the minimum as part of your 50% for needs, and don't worry about paying it off early. Your money will grow faster invested at 7 to 10% than it would be paying off 3% debt early. This is mathematically optimal. Some people prefer the emotional satisfaction of being debt-free and choose to pay off all debt regardless of interest rate. That's fine too. Personal finance is personal. The math says one thing, but if debt keeps you up at night, do what gives you peace. What if you're self-employed or have irregular income? The 50-30-20 rule still works, but you apply it differently. Instead of using your monthly income, use your average monthly income over the past 6 or 12 months. This smooths out the irregularity. In high-income months, you might save 30 or 40% because you need to cover the low-income months. In low-income months, you might dip into savings to maintain your spending. Over time, it averages out to 50-30-20. The key is building a larger emergency fund, maybe 6 to 12 months of expenses instead of 3 to 6, because your income volatility is higher.
What if you're retired or living on a fixed income? The rule still applies with modifications. Your needs might be lower because you've paid off your house and don't have work-related expenses. Your wants might stay the same or even increase because you have more time to enjoy life. Your savings might actually become spending if you're drawing down retirement accounts. That's fine. The principle is still about being intentional with your money allocation. Maybe it becomes 50% needs, 30% wants, and 20% for healthcare, future care costs, or leaving an inheritance. The exact categories shift, but the framework of conscious allocation remains. What if you live in an extremely high cost of living area like San Francisco or New York? Your needs will naturally be higher as a percentage of income because housing is so expensive. You have 3 choices. 1, accept that your needs will be higher than 50% temporarily while you work on increasing your income. 2, reduce your needs by moving to a cheaper part of the city or getting roommates. 3, move to a lower cost of living area. There's no judgment here. Some people need to be in these cities for their careers. Others choose to be there for the lifestyle. It's about being honest about the trade-offs you're making and ensuring you're still making progress toward your financial goals even if the percentages aren't perfect. Let's talk about specific expenses that people always debate about categorizing. Is a gym membership a need or a want? For most people, it's a want. You can exercise for free at home or outside, but if you have a medical condition that requires specialized equipment or guidance, it might be a need. Is therapy a need or a want? Need. Mental health is health. Is that expensive coffee every morning a need or a want? Come on, it's a want. You can make coffee at home for pennies. The daily coffee shop visit is about convenience and experience, not survival. Is your phone bill a need? The basic plan is a need. The unlimited data with the premium device payment plan is a want. Do you see the pattern? The basic version of most things is a need. The upgraded version is a want. Here's a controversial take. Your retirement savings is not a want, and it's not quite a need in the traditional sense. It's an investment in future you. Some people argue you should count it as a need because you need money in retirement. But that's not how the 50-30-20 rule categorizes it. It gets its own category, the 20% for savings and investments, precisely because it's so important that it needs to be separated out. If you lumped retirement savings into needs, it would compete with rent and food, and it would lose every time. By giving it its own category, you're forcing yourself to prioritize it equally with your current needs and wants. Let me give you some specific tactics for each category to help you optimize your 50-30-20 allocation. For needs, the biggest lever is almost always housing. If you can reduce your housing costs by even 10%, that's a massive win.
Consider house hacking, where you rent out a room or a portion of your home to offset your mortgage or rent. Consider moving to a cheaper area or downsizing. Consider refinancing your mortgage if rates have dropped. For transportation, consider whether you actually need a car. If you live in a city with good public transportation, selling your car could save you hundreds of dollars a month in payments, insurance, gas, and maintenance. If you do need a car, buy used and pay cash. A reliable 5 to 10-year-old Honda or Toyota will serve you just as well as a new car at a fraction of the cost. For groceries, meal planning is everything. People who meal plan spend 30 to 40% less on food than people who don't because they avoid impulse purchases, they waste less food, and they eat out less. Shop with a list. Buy generic brands for staples. Use coupons and cash back apps. Buy in bulk for non-perishables. Cook in batches and freeze meals. These small habits add up to big savings. For utilities, simple things like adjusting your thermostat, using LED bulbs, and unplugging devices when not in use can save you $50 to $100 a year. It's not life-changing, but it's free money you're leaving on the table if you don't do it. For wants, the key is intentionality. Before you buy something, ask yourself if it fits in your 30% budget for the month. If yes, buy it guilt-free. If no, wait until next month. This simple pause prevents most impulse purchases. For subscriptions, audit them quarterly. Cancel anything you're not actively using. It's easy to forget about a $10 subscription here and a $15 subscription there, but they add up to hundreds of dollars a year. For entertainment, look for free or cheap alternatives. Instead of going to the movies, have a movie night at home. Instead of going to bars, have friends over. Instead of buying new books, use the library. You're not being cheap, you're being smart. For dining out, set a specific budget and stick to it. Maybe you allocate $200 a month for restaurants. Once you've spent it, you're done until next month. This forces you to be selective about where and when you eat out. You'll choose the experiences that matter most instead of mindlessly grabbing takeout because you don't feel like cooking. For hobbies, you can enjoy expensive hobbies on a budget by buying used equipment, finding free resources online instead of paying for classes, and being creative. You don't need the newest, best, most expensive version of everything to enjoy your hobbies. For the 20% savings and investments, automation is non-negotiable. If you manually transfer money to savings each month, you'll skip it sometimes. If it's automatic, it always happens. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings account on payday. Set up automatic contributions to your 401k or IRA. Set up automatic investments into your brokerage account. Remove yourself from the equation. The money moves without you having to make a decision, and decisions is where people fail. For investing specifically, keep it simple. Most people should invest in low-cost index funds that track the overall market. No stock picking, no trying to time the market, no complex strategies, just consistent contributions to diversified index funds over decades. This is the proven path to wealth for ordinary people. If you don't know where to start, a target date retirement fund is a perfectly good option. It automatically adjusts your asset allocation as you get closer to retirement. Set it and forget it. For emergency fund savings, keep it in a high-yield savings account that's separate from your checking account. You want it to be accessible if you need it, but not so accessible that you dip into it for non-emergencies. Here's something most people don't think about. The 50-30-20 rule should evolve with your income. When you're making $30,000 a year, 20% might be $6,000 saved annually. That's great. But when you're making $100,000 a year, 20% is $20,000 annually. That's life-changing. The rule prevents lifestyle inflation from eating all your raises. Every time you get a raise, a bonus, or a new higher-paying job, immediately adjust your automatic savings to maintain that 20%. Don't let the extra money just disappear into wants. Allocate it intentionally. Maybe you increase your wants slightly to enjoy the fruits of your labor, but make sure savings increases proportionally. There's a concept called the savings rate ladder. You start at 20%. Once that feels comfortable and automatic, you try to increase it to 25%, then 30%, then 35%. Some people in the financial independence community save 50% or more of their income. That's not realistic or necessary for most people. But the point is that 20% is the baseline, not the ceiling. If you can save more without sacrificing your quality of life, do it. Your future self will thank you. Every percentage point increase in your savings rate is a huge increase in your trajectory toward financial security and eventual financial independence. Let's talk about the psychological aspects of the 50-30-20 rule that make it effective. First, it gives you permission to spend. That 30% for wants is guilt-free money. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to feel bad about it. It's yours to enjoy. This is crucial because most budgets fail because they're too restrictive. They try to cut out all fun, all spontaneity, all enjoyment. People rebel against that. The 50-30-20 rule builds in fun. It expects you to spend on things that make you happy. It just puts boundaries around it so you don't overspend. Second, it makes savings automatic and non-negotiable. Savings aren't something you do if there's money left over. There's something you do first, always, no matter what. This removes the daily decision fatigue of should I save or should I spend? The decision has already been made.
Third, it's simple enough to remember and explain. You can tell someone about the 50-30-20 rule in 30 seconds and they get it. 50 for needs, 30 for wants, 20 for savings. That simplicity is powerful because complex systems fail. If you need a spreadsheet with 50 categories and multiple equations to manage your budget, you're not going to stick with it. The 50-30-20 rule is simple enough that you can roughly calculate it in your head at any time. You know if you're on track or off track without needing detailed analytics. Fourth, it's flexible enough to adapt to life changes. New job, pay cut, marriage, kids, divorce, relocation, whatever happens, you can still apply the 50-30-20 framework. The specific dollar amounts change, but the percentages remain your North Star. Here's what most people discover when they implement the 50-30-20 rule. Their problem wasn't that they didn't make enough money. Their problem was they didn't know where their money was going. They were unconscious spenders. Every purchase was a one-off decision with no framework, no constraints, no plan. The rule makes you conscious. It makes you intentional. It makes you ask, before you spend, is this a need or a want? Do I have room in my wants budget this month? Is this purchase worth delaying something else? These questions lead to better decisions. Better decisions lead to better outcomes. Better outcomes lead to financial security, reduced stress, and more options in life. I want to address the people who think the 50-30-20 rule doesn't apply to them because they're in a unique situation. You're not as unique as you think. Yes, everyone's situation has specific details that are different, but the principles apply universally. You have needs, things you must spend money on. You have wants, things you choose to spend money on, and you should be saving for your future. The exact percentages might need to adjust based on your income level, your location, your family situation, your debt load, your age, but the framework still works. Don't use your unique situation as an excuse to not have a system. Use your unique situation to adapt the system to fit your reality. For young people just starting out, maybe in their early 20s, the rule might skew differently temporarily. Your needs might be lower because you have roommates and a cheap apartment. Your wants might be higher because you're young and want to experience life. Your savings might start lower but should increase as your income grows. That's fine. The important thing is you're thinking in these three categories and you're forming the habit of saving something, even if it's only 10 or 15% at first. For people in their 30s and 40s with families and mortgages, the rule might look different. Needs are higher. Wants might be lower. Savings should be aggressive because you're in your peak earning years. For people in their 50s and 60s approaching retirement, needs might be stable or decreasing. Wants might increase as you have more free time and you're shifting from saving mode to preparing to draw down mode. The beauty of the 50-30-20 rule is it's not about following someone else's exact budget. It's about having a framework that helps you create your own budget based on your income, your goals, your values, and your priorities. It respects that you're an individual with unique circumstances while still giving you a proven structure to work within. That combination of structure and flexibility is what makes it sustainable long-term. Let me share one more real-world example, and this one is about someone who makes a lot of money and still struggled financially. David was 42 and making $200,000 a year as a software engineer.
That's about $12,000 a month after taxes, retirement contributions, and everything else. He should have been wealthy. He should have been financially secure, but he wasn't. He had about $10,000 in savings, no investments outside his 401k, and he felt stressed about money constantly. How is this possible? Lifestyle inflation. His needs weren't actually high. His mortgage was $3,000, groceries, utilities, insurance, everything came to about another $2,000. His needs were $5,000, which is only 42%. Perfect, right? But his wants were out of control. He was spending $6,000 a month on wants, expensive dinners, the latest tech gadgets, premium subscriptions to everything, luxury vacations, a nice car lease, designer clothes, you name it. He was spending over 60% on wants and only saving about $1,000 a month, which is only 8% of his income. On paper, he was saving $12,000 a year, which sounds good until you realize he's making $200,000. He should have been saving $40,000 or more. The 50-30-20 rule showed him he was allocating his money terribly. He could afford a $6,000 a month lifestyle on wants if he was also saving $2,400 a month, 20%. But instead, he was prioritizing present consumption over future security. He made changes. He didn't cut his wants to $3,600, the 30% target. That would have been too drastic, and he wouldn't have sustained it. Instead, he cut his wants to $5,000, still way above the target, but better. He increased his savings from $1,000 to $2,000 a month. Not ideal, but progress. Over time, he continued to optimize. He refinanced his mortgage and saved $200 a month. He sold his leased luxury car and bought a 3-year-old luxury car with cash, saving $500 a month. He cut some subscriptions and unnecessary expenses and saved another $300. Within a year, his needs were down to $4,500, his wants were down to $4,000, and his savings were up to $3,500. Not perfect 50-30-20, but close, and infinitely better than where he started. David's story illustrates something critical. High income doesn't equal wealth. Wealth is what you keep and invest, not what you make. You can make $1 million a year and be broke if you spend $1 million a year. You can make $50,000 a year and become a millionaire if you save and invest wisely. The 50-30-20 rule keeps you honest. It shows you the gap between where you are and where you should be. It doesn't judge you, it doesn't shame you, it just presents the data and lets you decide what to do with it. One last thing I want to talk about is teaching this rule to others, especially kids. If you have children, teaching them the 50-30-20 rule early can set them up for a lifetime of financial success. When they get allowance or birthday money or start their first job, teach them to divide it. Half for things they need or are saving for, like a new bike or school supplies, 30% for things they want, like toys or games. 20% goes into a savings jar or account that they don't touch. Make it visual. Use 3 jars or 3 envelopes. Let them see the money physically divided. As they get older, open a bank account and teach them to do it digitally. The specific amounts don't matter when they're young. What matters is forming the habit of dividing money intentionally across needs, wants, and savings. This habit, formed early, compounds over a lifetime. For adults teaching other adults, share your own experience with the rule. Don't preach, don't lecture, just share. Tell them what you discovered when you tracked your spending. Tell them how you adjusted your needs. Tell them how good it feels to have savings growing automatically. Tell them about the mistakes you made and what you learned. Personal stories are more powerful than statistics or lectures. People connect with stories. They see themselves in your struggles and your successes. They think, if this person can do it, maybe I can too. And they're right, they can. The 50-30-20 rule isn't the only financial framework out there. There's the 60% solution, the 80-20 budget, zero-based budgeting, envelope budgeting, and dozens of others. They all have merits. The 50-30-20 rule is popular because it strikes the best balance between simplicity and effectiveness. It's simple enough that anyone can understand and implement it. It's effective enough that it actually works if you follow it. Could you create a more optimized budget with more categories and more detail? Sure. Would you actually follow it long term? Probably not. The best budget is the one you'll stick with. For most people, it's the 50-30-20 rule.
Here's what I want you to understand. You don't need more money to take control of your finances.
More money helps, obviously, but it's not the solution. The solution is a system, a framework, a way of thinking about and managing your money that's simple enough to follow consistently. The 50-30-20 rule is that system. 50% for the things you need to survive, 30% for the things that make life worth living, 20% for the future you're building. 3 numbers, 3 categories, 1 framework that can transform your financial life. This isn't about deprivation. It's not about becoming a minimalist or never spending money on things you enjoy. It's about balance. It's about making sure you're covering your basics, enjoying your life, and building your future all at the same time. It's about knowing where your money goes instead of wondering where it went. It's about making conscious decisions instead of unconscious spending. It's about having a plan. Let me be brutally honest with you about something. Most financial advice is either too complex or too restrictive. It's either a spreadsheet with 100 categories and formulas that require a finance degree to understand, or it's telling you to live on rice and beans, never have any fun, and sacrifice everything for some distant future. Neither of those approaches work for normal people living normal lives. That's why most people don't follow them. That's why most people continue to struggle financially even though they know they should be doing better. They don't need more information. They need a system that fits into real life. The 50-30-20 rule is that system. Think about the alternative. You continue doing what you're doing now. Money comes in, money goes out. You're not sure where it all goes. You feel stressed every time you look at your bank account. You have nothing saved for emergencies, so every unexpected expense becomes a crisis. You're not investing for retirement, so you're gonna have to work until you physically can't anymore. You can't take opportunities when they come up because you don't have any financial cushion, and you feel trapped by your paycheck. That's the alternative. That's what happens when you don't have a system. Is that really how you want to spend the next 10, 20, 30 years? Or you could start implementing the 50-30-20 rule today, right now, this second. You calculate your after-tax income, you multiply by 0.5, 0.3, and 0.2, you track your spending for 1 month to see where you actually are, you identify where you need to make adjustments, you start making those adjustments gradually, you automate your savings so it happens without willpower, you check in monthly to make sure you're on track, you celebrate progress, you learn from setbacks, you keep going. In a year, you have an emergency fund, you're investing for retirement, you're spending on things you enjoy without guilt, you feel in control instead of out of control. In 5 years, you have real wealth building, you have options, you have flexibility, you have peace of mind. In 10 years, you're financially secure in a way you never thought possible. That's what the system does for you. The choice is yours. You can keep doing what you're doing and get the same results you've always gotten, or you can implement a proven system and get different results. The 50-30-20 rule has worked for millions of people. It can work for you, but you have to actually do it. You have to take action. Knowing about the rule doesn't help you. Implementing the rule helps you. Understanding the concepts doesn't change anything. Changing your behavior changes everything. Start today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month when you get paid, today. Calculate your numbers right now. Look at your last month's bank statement and categorize every expense into needs, wants, or savings. See where you are. That's step 1. Step 2 is deciding where you want to be. Do you want to hit the 50-30-20 target? Do you want to modify it for your situation? Do you want to be more aggressive with savings, less aggressive? Decide. Step 3 is making a plan to get from where you are to where you want to be. What needs can you reduce? What wants can you cut or minimize? How can you automate your savings? Step 4 is implementing the plan, making the changes, setting up the automatic transfers, actually doing it. Step 5 is reviewing monthly and adjusting as needed. That's the process. It's simple. It's not always easy, but it's simple. Let me leave you with this final thought. Financial security isn't about having $1 million in the bank. It's about having systems that ensure you're always making progress toward your goals, no matter what those goals are. The 50-30-20 rule is that system. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about building wealth slowly and sustainably. It's not about never having any fun. It's about having fun within boundaries that protect your future. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's not about being the best investor or the most frugal person or the highest earner. It's about being intentional with whatever you have. That's what changes lives.
Not the amount of money you make, but what you do with the money you make.
You have everything you need to succeed financially. You have the knowledge. You now understand the 50-30-20 rule. You have the tools, your bank account, your calculator, your spreadsheet or budgeting app, and you have the ability to make different choices. That's all financial success requires: knowledge, tools, and different choices. You don't need to be smarter. You don't need to be more disciplined. You don't need to make more money, although that helps. You just need a system and the commitment to follow it. You've got this. The 50-30-20 rule works if you work it, so work it. Your future self is counting on you. Remember, every financial decision you make is either moving you toward financial security or away from it. There's no neutral. Every dollar you spend on a want instead of savings is a dollar that won't compound over time. Every dollar you waste on an inflated need is a dollar that can't work for your future. Every dollar you save and invest is a dollar that multiplies over time and eventually buys you freedom. The 50-30-20 rule ensures that you're moving in the right direction more often than not. It's not about being perfect with every single financial decision. It's about making more good decisions than bad decisions over time. That's how wealth is built. That's how financial security is achieved. One decision at a time, 1 month at a time, 1 year at a time, following a simple system that works. So, here's your action plan. Today, calculate your after-tax monthly income. Today, multiply by 0.5, 0.3, and 0.2 to get your targets. This week, track every single expense and categorize it. Next week, calculate what percentage of your income went to each category last month. Compare it to your targets. Identify the gap. 2 weeks from now, make one change to close the gap. Reduce one need, cut one want, or increase your income. Set up one automatic transfer for savings. 1 month from now, review your progress. Did you stick to your targets? Where did you struggle? What worked? What didn't? Adjust and continue. 3 months from now, check your savings balance. You should see it growing. 6 months from now, check again. It should be significantly higher. 1 year from now, you should have an emergency fund building, retirement contributions consistent, and spending under control. That's the path. That's the system. Follow it and you will succeed. The 50-30-20 rule is simple, but simple doesn't mean ineffective. Simple means sustainable. Simple means you can actually do it long-term without burning out. And long-term consistency is what builds wealth. Not complicated strategies, not extreme measures, just consistent application of a simple system over years and decades. That's the secret that wealthy people know and that financially struggling people haven't learned yet. It's not what you know, it's what you do consistently. The 50-30-20 rule gives you something to do consistently. Use it, commit to it, give it a real chance by following it for at least 3 months before you decide whether it works for you. That's not a long time, 90 days. Can you commit to 90 days of intentional money management? I think you can. I know you can. The question is, will you? That's up to you. But if you do, I promise you'll see results. You'll feel different about money. You'll feel more in control, less stressed, more hopeful about your financial future. That feeling alone is worth the effort. Add in the actual financial progress you'll make, and it's a no-brainer. Do this. Start today. Your future depends on the decisions you make right now. Make the right one.